The Building Apps for Windows Phone 8.1 Jumpstart. I'm Andy Wigley.
I'm Matthias Shapiro.
And we've got 2.5 days of great content for you, which is going to take you through building apps for the new phone platform. I'm a technical evangelist. I work for Microsoft in the UK. I was an MVP for 10 years before I joined Microsoft a couple of years ago. I've got a blog, andywigley.com, and written a few books. I've got a note there. Don't buy the latest one because it's kind of out of date now. These days, I prefer to do things like this, videos and speaking at conferences and blogging and that kind of stuff, and a bit more immediate. So yeah, I just say I'm a rock star as well. I play in a band, you know.
Right. I'm Matthias Shapiro. I'm a program manager at Microsoft and a technical evangelist. I'm a longtime XAML developer. I've been working since the WPF days, mostly in XAML. I started as a UI developer and kind of worked my way backwards into more devy sort of stuff. And I've been doing Windows Phone since the beginning. I do demos and I make a lot of noise about it on blogs and Twitter. And yeah, so that's
cool.
Me.
Great. So this is the agenda, what we're going to take you through here. The first session, which I'm just going to get into in just a moment, it will introduce the dev platform to you. It's going to, we'll talk about what the key deliverables are and a kind of a preview of everything that we're going to be seeing through the rest of this jumpstart. Now the next sessions there, which are highlighted in a curious hue of purple, that's a different color because that's kind of like a mini course, if you like. This is all about building Windows XAML based apps using the new Windows Runtime APIs. So the Windows Runtime flavor of XAML, which is the same one that we've got from on big Windows 8.1. But that's now, as part of this release, that comes down to Windows Phone. So the first part of it is going to take you through building apps using that new XAML, which if you're an existing phone developer, it's kind of similar, but a lot of differences from what you're used to with Windows Phone Silverlight. Then sessions 9 and 10, we're going to wrap up this afternoon, around about 3 p.m. on Pacific time. We're going to get onto that and run through till 5. From that point on, we're into Windows Runtime APIs, and these are available whether you're programming in Windows Runtime XAML or you're using Windows Phone Silverlight XAML. So all this, the rest of the stuff, really from here to the end, is available to everybody. So that's day one. Tomorrow, if you're watching this live, is going to be, we're going through loads more of these Windows Runtime APIs, the background tasks, the great maps, geofencing, loads of new stuff about networking, great, obviously, new tiles, notifications, Action Center, NFC Bluetooth, user data, camera, enterprise stuff, a lot of good stuff in there, a short session on doing programming SQLite, and then tooling and diagnostics. So that's through tomorrow. And I should mention that some of these sessions are kind of an hour when there's plenty to say, and others are kind of half an hour. So the slots here are not actually all equal length, but that'll take us through day 2. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with just a little half day on Thursday, which is talking about the store, packaging, and that kind of stuff. Then we're going to really go into the universal apps. So we're going to obviously touch on universal apps throughout this course, because this is one of the big deliverables with this release. But this is a session where we're going to go in and say, okay, what's it really like to build an app, a universal app for both Windows Phone and for the tablet or PC. And then finally, a session that's solely for Silverlight devs. So if you're an existing Windows Phone application developer and your skills are Silverlight XAML, we've got some things that are going to help you succeed on Windows Phone 8.1. So that's the agenda. And into the first session proper. So this is introducing what we've got with Windows Phone 8.1. So in this one, give you a little introduction to what are the key things about the new release from the consumer point of view. And then we'll look at the dev platform, about what we've got in there. A brief overview, which is kind of like, a high-level preview of what we're going to talk about in depth on the rest of this, how you get started, and then a little bit about your choices as a XAML developer. All right, so Windows Phone 8.1. As you know, if you're watching this live, you'll know that build happened a few weeks ago, and that was when the SDK was first released out to the world. So this is the new Windows Phone SDK and the Windows Phone OS. Now, what top reviewers have been saying great stuff about this for a while. It's It's a very popular OS, keeps winning great awards from reviewers, and even the ones on blue there, quotes there, those who have had a look at 8.1 are all in agreement that what we've got is a great new release. What we've done with the hardware side of things with Windows Phone 8.1 is we kind of decreased the cost of creating Windows phones. For example, we've worked with Qualcomm to come up with a Qualcomm reference design. This is a kind of a ready-to-go, the OS integrated with hardware based on Qualcomm chipset and everything, and it allows an OEM to come along, take that, and with a minimum of customization to get a phone out really cheaply, so it reduces their customization costs. We've got dual SIM support, which is really important in certain markets, and loads of apps and a platform that's really aimed at making sure that users are feeling in control of their data costs. So apps like DataSense, Wi-Fi Sense, which helps you to connect to free Wi-Fi services when you're around, and Wi-Fi Sense and Battery Saver, which shows you which apps are most power hungry. So you can choose to uninstall those that are not being friendly with your battery. So that was the hardware, and then on the software, loads of great features which end users will enjoy. The Action Center, of course, where you swipe down from the top. That's just such a great feature. You can easily get at your settings and your notifications, and this great Skype app integration, a fantastic new calendar app, huge improvement on the old one. The Wordflow keyboard is awesome for doing typing really swiftly. Just swipe around your finger on the keyboard. There's the ability to, if you buy an app for the PC, you can also have the kind of rights to install for free on the phone and vice versa. App data roaming amongst devices, start screen backup and restore. So now if you buy a new phone and you plug it in, and any of you who have done this will know that you can choose to restore a backup from a previous phone, and that would restore, your apps and that sort of thing. That was a good start on Windows Phone 8. But in Windows Phone 8.1, it will also restore your start screen and all your tiles and everything. So that's really cool. Woo. Yeah. Faster updates, app data, so the backup your files that your apps store, they'll be backed up overnight up to OneDrive as well, if you wish. Again, all this is under your control as the user. Remote viewing. So this is the thing, like when Microsoft evangelists go and do a demo and they show a phone, and we'll be using this, of course, in the Jumpstart. They show the phone on the big screen. Everybody says, "Oh, can I do that?" And for various reasons, we weren't able to open that out to everybody before. But now this is a built-in feature. Every single person who has a Windows phone can plug in a USB cable, and later on with newer phones use Miracast Wi-Fi as well. You'll be able to then view your phone screen on a PC or on a TV screen. Yep. So that's really cool. Everybody gets that. And
a lot of these new features, while they're features for users, they have really great developer counterparts so that we can integrate the best way we possibly can, make sure our applications are taking advantage of all those great new features that the users have access to. So.
Yeah, and the final point on there, users can install apps to the SD card. So the SD card is really becoming more valuable. Again, this is going to be particularly useful for low-cost phones. They can expand the storage, and then apps can go on the built-in storage or onto the SD card. So all cool stuff. Some other features, I'm just going to pick out just a few. The start screen, you can actually put a picture now behind. So this is really nice. This is a good reason why, if you're an app developer, you might want to start using, putting tiles into your package with a transparent background, which in the past would have just taken the user's chosen accent color, which is kind of nice, but everything tends to look the same color then. But now, if you put a photo on the background of your start screen, that will shine through anywhere where it normally would be, where it would normally be the accent color on Windows Phone 8. Really nice effect, and you can get your own pictures on there.
A little parallax in the background.
Yeah, it's nice, yeah. And we've also expanded this what we call three columns, which actually means 6 mini tiles. But 3 columns was brought out for the update 3 of Windows Phone 8.0, just for the big phones initially, the big 6-inch super phones.
Yep.
That's now available to everybody. So if 3 columns is your thing, you can even have that down on a 4.5-inch phone. Personally, I wouldn't bother, but
it's a little small for me.
Yeah, for me too. Oh yes, Cortana. So yes, Cortana. You all know about this. Okay, this is the speech-activated assistant, and learns about you and your interests, and helpfully is proactive. So it will tell you if something's coming up, like there's traffic problems that might stop you catching your flight. So it learns about you and helps become a helpful assistant, and you interact with it through speech. So this is really nice. It's only going to be. We're not going to talk a lot about this, I'm afraid. mainly because it's only out in the US initially in a few months, and then it will extend to the UK and China by the end of the year, and then it will get out to other territories after that. You can integrate with this through voice commands, which is actually the same feature we had in Windows Phone 8. So if you want to know how to integrate with Cortana, watch the speech session from the last Jumpstart, starring yours truly, which is up on Channel 9. The speech session from there is actually all we're going to say about Cortana integration, I'm afraid. But it's a good session, even though I say it myself, from the previous Jumpstart. So that's that one. All right. So, if you haven't got Windows Phone 8.1 on your device, how do you get it onto your phone? Well, first of all, of course, any new devices that are sold into market from the near future will obviously have Windows Phone 8.1 pre-installed. Now, if you've already got a phone running Windows Phone 8.0, one thing is to say is there's no technical reasons why that phone cannot run Windows Phone OS 8.1. Now, whether an update is made available for your particular device, actually, and when that happens, is actually not, unfortunately, in our hands. That is if you've got a contract device that you've got through a mobile operator, it's up to them to make the update available to you. So we hope that will happen for the majority of you in short time, but that's not under our control. However, if you're you can't wait for that, and you consider yourself a bit of a developer, or even actually if you're not a developer but you want to pretend to be a developer, you can get the OS onto your phone very easily. First of all, if you've got a developer account, so you've signed up for a dev account at dev.windowsphone.com, or you've registered for appstudio.windowsphone.com, which is this web tool for creating apps that run. It was only on the phone, and actually we announced an update that's coming, and now apps will run on tablet as well. But if you register for that, and that's free, then you can have access to this thing, which is the preview for developers. So the Windows Phone 8.1 preview for developers, it's just an app. So you download this app and you run it, and then it will ask you for your Microsoft account credentials when you run it. That's how it figures out whether you're a proper developer or not, whether you've registered in one of those ways I just spoke about. And if it is, then what it does is it just changes the lookup addresses where the phone check for updates thing goes to where it looks for OS updates, and it directs it to Microsoft servers rather than the MOs. So in that way, you can get the update, and a good number of people, and the fact this was opened up, what was it, last week?
Yep.
Beginning of last week. And there were a lot of people doing it because particularly my phones, particularly when I was in the UK at the time, so it was cool in the morning, they had good access, and then the US people woke up and they all got a bit slow. So that was very popular. So you can get it, and that's how you can get it onto your phone. So you can enjoy it now. So get on and do it. All right, so what's in this release for the developer? Well, the big thing is about bringing one Windows to developers, this converged developer platform. So the big deliverable with this, it is about merging. It's delivering on this one Microsoft promise. It's delivering a converged developer platform where you can now very easily build apps for phone and tablet at the same time and share a very, very high percentage of your code. Lots of other good stuff. We've got improved push notification services, great new features in live tiles. The Action Center is actually programmable, so you can control some of the notifications that are in there. We've got a whole new and very much expanded background execution. I'm going to go into these in a bit more detail in a moment. And things like Bluetooth LE support and a new browser. Now, this platform convergence is nothing new. So we've been actually doing this for quite a while. If you go back to Windows Phone 7.5, what was called at the time the Mango code word, at that time we converged the browser. So Internet Explorer was exactly the same code base on Windows Phone as it was on big Windows. But that was it, actually. And then we get to Windows Phone 8, then we really started to move big steps towards this converged platform. So the big thing here actually didn't change so much, unless you were a games developer, didn't really change so much what happened to you as a XAML-based app developer, for example. But what happened was we fixed the foundations. We put this whole new OS in underneath. So the OS changed from a Windows CE-based OS on Windows Phone 7.5 to the Windows NT kernel. So it's the same core OS as we've got on big Windows. And there were a lot of modules were shared, like the kernel and networking and that kind of stuff. We've got BitLocker and Secure Boot in there as well, all shared between the two platforms. So from the developer platform point of view, yeah, gamers, they had a really good story. So it was very easy to develop a DirectX, Direct3D based game and have it on Windows and port it very easily to phone and the other way around. And also still, because we had Internet Explorer 10 there as well, so if you were doing web development. Get to Windows Phone 8.1, and this is where we complete the, we square the circle, as they say. So this is where we converge right the way across the board. So we've now got a truly converged dev platform with it's great opportunity now for you to train yourself up with one XAML-based skill set and know how one way of doing things, and it's going to work across both the platforms. We've also aligned the stores and then the Windows RT layer, the APIs underneath, hugely converged, and that extends to both the new flavor of XAML, which has come down from Windows, and also Silverlight XAML, which is what our existing developer community has been using up till now. So both of them are equal citizens in this new world. Right, so this is a picture now of what it looked like with Windows Phone 8.0. Well, Windows Phone 8, we never actually said 0.0, but just for the sake of lack of confusion, so 8.0. So we had a little bit of convergence there. So the big blue circle, that's the Windows APIs, big Windows. The little red circle there, that's the phone set of APIs. And as you can see, there's a bit of convergence there, mainly about in-app purchase. There was some sensors. There was a bit about storage, but that's pretty much it, not a lot. But then, with this release, this is where we've come to. So over 90% of the APIs are exactly the same on big Windows and a Windows Phone. Why is it not 100%? Well, there's a few little edge cases where there's some stuff that only makes sense on phone and some stuff that only makes sense on big Windows. And we recognize that the way you use these devices actually is a little bit different. So we've converged everything that makes sense to converge, and then there's a few little bits on the outside where we might have some unique APIs. Yeah,
so with Windows 8.0, I think the biggest way to talk about this, and I think the most exciting one, is with 8.0, we would generally say storage is converged, so you can use this, and this code would work across both. And we would call it out when the 8.0 would fit with Windows and Windows Phone. It worked across. But in this jump start, we're actually going to call out when it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because almost everything you're going to see is going to be, it works on Windows, it works on Windows Phone, exact same way. And when it doesn't, we'll let you know.
Yep. So this is a confusing block diagram of all the kind of bits and pieces that make up the dev platform, kind of into broad boxes of API sets. It's not particularly meant to be, pinpoint accurate, but it's to give you a flavor of what we've got. The big boxes on the top are your kind of choices as a developer. WinJS, which is HTML and JavaScript. Then we've got Windows Runtime XAML, which you can code with C#, Visual Basic, or C++ for your logic. DirectX for gamers. And then on the right, we've got this different colored box, which is the Windows Phone Silverlight. So this is the phone-only bit. So Windows Phone Silverlight, obviously still 100% supported and totally a great platform for building Windows Phone apps with. But that's the one that's different. Everything else that's colored the same is exactly the same across big Windows and Windows Phone. So yeah, this is another way of looking at those boxes across the top. These are your app development for native apps, your app development choices for Phone 8.1. DirectX, Direct3D, you get your programming using mainly C++, although actually this is gaming, so most of your games developers will use one of the middleware vendors. Unity is becoming really, really popular, and there's a good number of others that are really good platforms as well. I'm afraid in this jumpstart we're not going to talk about gaming. I mean, if we start talking about gaming and WinJS, we'd be here for like 3 weeks, not 3 days. So we have to draw a line somewhere. So this is going to be, the jumpstart is really going to focus on building with XAML and C#. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in the middle we've got WinJS. This is if you're an HTML and JavaScript developer, you prefer working with those, you can build native apps for Windows Phone, as you can for Windows 8.1, of course. So that is now supported on Windows Phone in this release as well. So that's really exciting if those are your preferred tools of the trade. On the right there, then we've got these two flavors of XAML, the Windows Runtime XAML and the Windows Phone Silverlight XAML. So they kind of, those of you who've tried to build for both in Windows Phone 8 know that you can do it, but you have to be fairly adept and agile about it. You have to get everything well organized. In terms of the XAML, stuff kind of works the same way. It looks the same, and actually you'll recognize all the tags are the same. and they do roughly the same things. But actual fact, the way an app, it's more than just the XAML, it's the kind of framework around it, how an app responds to being suspended and terminated, that sort of thing. So it is a little bit different between Windows Runtime XAML and Windows Phone Silverlight XAML. And like the next sessions 2 through 8 will come after this, we're going to be focusing on that dark green box there, the Windows Runtime XAML. You're not seeing that, that's all right. There we go, the dark green box there, the Windows Runtime XAML, yep. And actually the bullet point at the bottom of this is almost the most important one on this slide. In any app, you can carry on writing using the tools that you've used up till now if you're a phone dev. So you could write an app today using Visual Studio 2012, targeting Windows Phone 7.5. And that will run just great on Windows Phone 8.1. So everything you've written up to now will run great on Windows Phone 8.1. So you can carry on using existing tools and move on up and use the new APIs when it makes sense for you. So there's no break here. Any apps written for the earlier versions will run just great. Right, after that quick intro of the platform, let's actually do a demo. So I'm going to show you what it's like to actually to build an app that's a universal app for the phone and the tablet. What? Hang on. All right, that surprised me. Just bear with me while I log into my machine. Here we go. Okay, Visual Studio. Visual Studio 2013 with the new tools which are available to everybody. This is the same build that was released at the same version that was released at Build. It's the release candidate of the Phone SDK. I'm going to create myself a new project. And what I'm going to create is you'll see here, I'm in Visual C#, which is my preferred language, and we've got Store Apps as the options. And under there, in the new project thing, we've got 3 choices, 3 categories. Universal apps, these are, you're building a project that's targeting both. Or you can choose to build just for big Windows, Windows 8.1. Or you can choose to target just Windows Phone. Now, none of these are dead ends, because if you build a Windows Phone app, you can right-click on it and say add Windows to this project as well, so to this solution as well. But I'm going to build straight away a universal app. And it's worth mentioning before I move on, although this Store Apps category is repeated both for Visual Basic, for Visual C++, and also for JavaScript, so all the different flavors, but they've all got the same kind of new project templates in them. So anyway, let's create ourselves here a project. I'm going to call this Flickr Search, and I'm going to create this. It's going to be a little app that talks to Flickr, this is the app. You'll see that in the Solution Explorer, I've got a Windows project. In this solution, it's got 3 projects. If you look up here, we've got a Windows project. Scrolling down, we've got a phone project, and down here we've got this shared area as well. So this shared area is where shared stuff that's going to be built into both is going to be put. So I'm immediately going to add some new files to this, which I've prepared already. Two files. Add them in. And these are added in now. Just to give you a flavour of what this is a class called Flickr Photo Result. So when we get objects back from Flickr, they're going to be representing images are represented by that. Then I've got this search async method, which goes off. It uses an API called HTTP client, which we'll look at tomorrow, which goes off to HTTP and does a search, and it will return back a collection of objects. Now, that's all you need to know about that for now. So let's go and do some design on our Windows app. So here we go. This is our big Windows app. And I'm going to select you'll notice that it's just got a single grid defined on our page. There's our closing tag for the page. And here's our grid. This is XAML, of course, if you've not seen it before. And I'm going to create myself a couple of rows on it. so we can do some layout, because that's created a couple of rows. I'm going to make that 100 pixels high, and this one will be 40 pixels high. And let's scroll this up a bit. So I'm going to then add in some controls on this. And I've got a little bit of XAML that I've pre-prepared, which is, all this is put a little header on it. Here's my text block on the top of this, and I've got a text of Flickr, which you can see up there, and I've applied a nice style on it to give it the to make it look quite nice. Then underneath that, I've got a grid view, which is going to show our photo results. And inside the grid view, I need to define how each item that's going to be shown in that grid is going to look. So I've got what's called a data template, which we're going to talk about when we get to the list session, if you haven't come across these before. A data template, this is the layout that's going to be used to show every image that we show on the screen. So we've got an image, and we've got a text block which is going to be shown. So the image, so we're going to get a picture, and underneath that we're going to get the text, which is the name of it, basically. So let's go off to our main page under here. This is where the code that's behind this is going to go. And I'm going to insert another snippet in here, which is this is going to make a call to our. You'll see what we've got here is on Navigator 2 is a method that in the framework that executes when you go to a page. And so what it's going to do is it's going to look for. You can pass in a search term, but if we don't give one, we're going to default to the search term flowers, and that's going to call this search Flickr method, which is defined just below here. I'm going to have to fix up a couple of. What this does is it makes a call to search async, and then when we get our results back, it sends that off to the page, and we'll talk about this in session 3 what this means. But essentially, this is going to take those results and throw them up to the page for being displayed. And then I've also got a couple of things that are just for interest, where we can update tiles and send the toast. And I just need to fix up some references on that to get some namespaces brought in so that all of this will build. And I think that should be good. So now we can try and run this, and we'll see what we get back. So this is our Windows app, remember, and there we are, it's coming up on the screen. We're calling out to Flickr, and we've got some nice pictures. So there we go. It's pretty nice, and we can scroll across. Got lots of nice pictures of flowers there. So that was nice and simple, a call out to Flickr. Now what about building our phone app? So I'm going to switch to the different startup project. Now what we can do actually is, it's the same XAML, so why don't we just copy it? So I'm going to copy everything inside our grid. Try to anyway. Here we go. Copy it from the Windows app, and let's go and do some design on our phone app. So here's our main page for the phone app. So we're going to run into the designer. There's our phone designer screen. Let's just make sure we can see all of that. So we can say fit all. There's our phone screen, nothing on it. And we can just paste that XAML straight into that. It's the same. I mean, we're going to have to fix up a few spacing to make it appropriate for the phone. Let's take that out there as well. Let's make that a bit bigger in the template. Let's just try that and see. I think I probably need to do some, let's try that and see. That should do it. Now, okay, now at the moment in here, I haven't got any logic on this page either. Now I could insert that same snippet that I did before. And that would work just the same because all the code is compatible. It's exactly the same APIs underneath it. So, but actually what I'm going to do is, because that would end up with the same code in 2 places, and I don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is copy all the code that I already created for the Windows app, and then I'm going to go down to my shared folder and create add a new class in here, which we'll call main page .xaml.cs. I could call it whatever I like actually, but this to be sensible. And then paste that all into there. Now, what am I doing here? The key word here is this one, partial here. So it's a partial class. Now I'm going to take the constructor out. And then I'm going to go back to my main page. What partial classes are in C# is it allows you to distribute the code that makes up a class that will be compiled into one object. You distribute it across different physical files. So it means that because this is shared, this is going to end up in the phone project and in the Windows project. So I can go over here now and simply delete all of this, because otherwise it would be duplicated. And it will be brought in anyway because it's the partial class, and just leave the I'll just leave the constructor. I like to leave something in there just because the designer gets kind of upset if it really hasn't got. I could have moved that all the way down to the shared thing, but the designer gets upset if you don't have a backing file. And that on Navigator 2 is in the shared file as well. So now I've got it minimalist. All the code, the logic is in that shared thing. And if I run it on the emulator. Here's my emulator. This is a Hyper-V virtual machine, by the way. So it's running the true Windows Phone OS, and there's our pictures again. So then we've created. There's still some work to do, maybe to fix up the alignment and maybe put some spacing in. But you see the principle, same code working on both. We can do some other stuff as well. So if I go into the app manifest and set toast capable to yes on the Windows on the phone project, and let's do the same on this one. We get toast capable to yes. Now, if you remember in that main page, we go back and look at it again. When we search, we call some other stuff, which is update tile and send toast. I'm not going to bother showing the tiles because just for time, but this is in the sample which we're going to make available to you. So it'll update some tiles and it also will send a toast. This exact same method is going to execute on both platforms. So if you do it on the phone first, here it is running on the phone, and we get our thing, the pictures come up, and if the gods are with us, we should get a toast pop up in a moment as well. Which is coming from the notification services. There it is, the toast came up. Woo. Woo. And that's the Sony DSC, which is just the text associated with that, and we've got our nice notification center as well there. There it is, Sony DSC. And we can, obviously, just to prove the point, we can run the same back onto, oh, I need to change projects. Change this one, set that was the startup project, and run that one, and of course that will work just the same as well. So, we get our pictures up. There we go. This one, we should get a toast saying P11800478. Come up in a minute. Coming up now. Any minute now. You know you want to. Oh, maybe I need to terminate. No. I need to terminate this. I think it will come up in a second. First demo bomb of the day. I'm sure that will come up in a while. Anyway, we'll leave that. Okay. Now then, so that was a quick demo which shows you how to build a quick idea of what it's like to build a universal Windows Phone and Windows app. We've still got two heads. We recognise that using a tablet is a different experience to using a phone. But what we do is we make it really easy to share loads and loads of your code. And Matthias is going to be digging a bit deeper into kind of more a real-world example. That was a fairly trivial example, but something a bit more realistic on Thursday.
Yep.
All right.
We'll be talking in bits and pieces about the different ways to do some different techniques. We've got a lot of different sessions that touch on this cross-platform development, and so this will kind of permeate the entire Jumpstart as we go along. Yeah,
I mean that partial class thing is just one technique you can use, but that was kind of just to show the possibilities. Yeah. All right, I'm very quickly and at high speed now going to run through. This is kind of, think of this as what's coming up. So coming up later in this Jumpstart. All right, the first and most important new feature for developers of Windows Phone SDK 8.1 is what we just saw. This converged platform. You can create a single app that targets Windows Phone, or a single solution, shall we, targets Windows Phone and big Windows. And we just saw that, but it's also, obviously, the tooling and everything's the same. This is really really powerful for building apps using Windows Runtime XAML. We've also got Win.js. So this is the HTML and JavaScript flavor of building native apps, Windows Phone Store apps. So that's really cool. That's come to the phone. Unfortunately, we are not going to cover that in this Jumpstart. Again, that's a whole big subject that deserves a Jumpstart all of its own, I would suggest. So
yeah, and the good news is that if you follow the APIs that we go, you can go and look at those up on MSDN, and you'll actually see the JavaScript counterpart right there. You can click on a tab and go look over there. So it takes a little bit of work, but you can draw a correspondence between what you're seeing here and the JavaScript side.
Yep. We've got this thing called a common canvas for screen diversity. So we'll talk about a little bit about this later today in a lot more detail. But actually, if you're a Windows Phone dev, you'll know that up till now we've had this kind of convenient arrangement whereby every phone was kind of 480 pixels wide, regardless of its physical size, logically. So which is kind of all right when phones were 4.5, 5 inches. They're kind of physically similar sizes. But these super phones, like the 520 here, these monsters, beautiful phones, but they're big screens, So if you start creating one design that looks good on a 4.5-inch phone, and then you run the same app on a 6-inch phone, it can kind of look comically large sometimes. So anyway, we changed it for Windows XAML runtime apps only. We've got this kind of flexible arrangement that more closely mirrors the physical size of the screen. So we'll talk about that and how you design for that later on today. In Windows Runtime XAML, we've got this converged control set. So, you saw me using grids and stack panels, text blocks, and grid views in that little demo I just did. Of course, there are many different controls. We've kind of divided them up into 3 broad groupings. We've got common controls, which look exactly the same on both platforms. We've got these things we call optimized controls, which you program in exactly the same way, but when they render at runtime, they kind of do something a bit different depending on what platform they're running on. And a great example of that is the date picker, which on Windows Phone you have this nice swipey rotary controls, but on the tablet or PC you're into sort of more traditional, if you like, drop-down boxes. And there's others that work like that as well. And the last one that we call signature controls, just because it's nice to think of them in this as a separate category. But these are the controls that really encapsulate the Windows user experience, the kind of the feel, the way, the look and the feel, and the animations, all the nice way that our apps, the quality that they exude. Hopefully, I'm getting carried away with myself. But these controls help you to build great experiences, and they're big page layout ones like Hub and Pivot, and then listing ones like List View and Grid View. This is an example of how this is actually a kind of a hub view, where an example that you can use to tailor the UI. So you might choose to have just an image on a travel app for the Windows Phone, and then on big Windows, both of these are the hub control, but you've changed the layout. You've programmed the layout. The designer has programmed the layout in XAML, so you're presenting a different experience that's appropriate for the device and where it's running. Speaking of animations, this one is thrown in for you Windows Phone 8 devs out there. You will know that building Windows Phone 8 apps and getting nice animations in was kind of tricky. It wasn't really baked into the kind of platform. It is for Windows XAML. So Windows Runtime XAML, you get all this stuff is built in. All the controls have all the nice touchy-feely stuff that you would expect. It's great. Background tasks. Again, on Windows Phone 8, we used to have 2 flavors of that. On Windows 8.1, we're converged with Big Windows and Windows Phone 8.1. We've got loads of ways you can run code in the background, hugely expanded on time zone change, location trigger for geofencing things, time triggers. You can also send a push notification, a raw notification from your backend systems, and cause that to run some code. Woohoo! Yeah, and loads of other stuff. We've got a new tiles and notification system, really massively expanded. There's loads of new good stuff you can do with tiles notifications, a whole session on that coming tomorrow. The Action Center, I mentioned, this is programmable, so this is the one where you can actually put silent notifications. So if any of you have upgraded your app will know about this. So every so often you'll get a notification, and because some apps the store has updated some apps for you silently, and it will just put a silent, it won't put a pop-up on the screen to interrupt you, but it will stick it into the notification center. You can do stuff like that from your apps. Great stuff with app data. So now, we're going to talk a lot about this actually later this afternoon. You can actually have roaming data, so you can have settings. You set on your phone app, and then you go out and pick up your tablet, and you're running the same app on that, and it will have picked up the same settings that the personalization settings that you'd already changed on the phone, so your colors or your preferences. And this is really nice, a great experience for users using our apps. And we've got 3 flavors of storage. And it roams across different devices as well. So tablet and phone versions of apps get the same details. Share contract is really awesome. This is a new way of sharing, very flexible. We're going to talk about that this afternoon, where you can much richer ways of sharing content between your app. We expect most apps to be share sources, and fewer, it will be the Facebooks of this world, would be share targets. Great support for geofencing, so you can have up to 1,000 geofences in an app, which sounds like a mind-boggling amount of geofences. And whether that's a practical limit is another matter. But
actually, the practical limit is way higher than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1,000 is, we don't recommend going over 1,000, and the practical limit is really absurdly large.
And if you manage to come up with an app that needs 1,000, good on you.
Right.
Yeah. Good video editing. This is where we've kind of converged. Windows Phone has converged ahead of Windows here, in that we've got video editing, which is available on the phone. Actually, this is a feature that isn't available on Windows 8.1. Everything else I've been talking about to now is available on Windows 8.1. We've got this nice thing called the screen recorder, which we see being used for gaming, really, where the application could choose, maybe a user's getting close to crashing through a level, and they're close to a big success. So the app can turn on recording after getting confirmation from the user, of course. And then if you beat the level, you could then pop up a dialog saying, hey, well done, do you want to share this? And the user will say, yeah, absolutely. And then it will automatically transcode that captured video to VJ and upload it as an MP4 up to the cloud for sharing through your favorite social network. That's pretty awesome. Bluetooth LE, great for kind of key finders and sensors and heart rate monitors and all that kind of stuff. Great support for that. Bluetooth RF COM as well for more sort of serial port emulation Bluetooth devices. And these come all with background tasks and triggers as well. So you can actually run some code when you've forgotten your keys. So you can raise an alert and that kind of stuff. Loads of great stuff for the enterprise. A huge amount of new management. We've got a whole session of this coming tomorrow afternoon. Client certificate authentication. So we've got mutual authentication now, not just server certificates, but you can have client certificates as well. The Windows cryptography APIs come for us. We've got enterprise Wi-Fi, VPN support, app-triggered VPN. S-MIME, which is encrypted email, and great ways for enterprises to manage the apps on the end users' devices for fully managed devices where an enterprise is giving them out to its personnel. Sort of coupled with that, we've got great new stuff for identity and authentication and single sign-on. So this web authentication broker encapsulates all the complicated stuff of doing OAuth authentication against social providers. And we've got credential locker for secure storage. With website HTML5, we've got Internet Explorer 11 is on the phone. So if you're doing websites or using the WinJS apps for building it. We've got great support for WebGL, which has been a big ask, and inline video, and loads of great stuff. Great support for HTML5 features. Awesome tooling, of course. Loads of great SDK tools, and the Windows Phone Power Tools for finding memory leaks and monitoring your performance and estimating the battery usage, and loads of great tools. We've got a session on that coming up at the end of tomorrow. And of course, much more, which I haven't got time to mention. So hopefully your particular favorite is coming up in this list now. So loads and loads of great new stuff. And we're going to touch on most of these through the sessions that are coming up. How do you get started? Well, go to dev.windows.com. It's our dev center, which is becoming our universal target for both. We're kind of bringing Windows Phone and Windows devs together. We've already got a single sign-on, so you can sign on once as a developer, and you are obviously building for both them. You can get the tools. If you haven't got the tools, get the tools from there as well, the free download of Visual Studio. And your dev PC needs to be running Windows 8.1. It can be an x86 or x64. Actually, in Windows Phone 8, it had to be x64, but we now support x86 for building for Windows Phone or Windows 8.1. Yeah, 4 gigs is really the minimum. So actually, in all honesty, I would recommend a 64-bit machine and try and get 8 gigs of RAM if you want to have a good experience with, especially if you're running emulators, because they take a load of memory because they are virtual machines, so you need loads of RAM. You don't need a dev account to get started, to download the SDK and start building tools. But if you want to publish an app or you want to do any push notifications, you do, because that's how you need to sort of register your apps with the store and start doing all of that.
Yeah, there are lots of things that are going to tie your application to some sort of store manifest.
Yeah.
Things like roaming data is also, you're just going to need an account.
Sure.
Got to do it.
Sure. So lastly, let's talk a little bit about your choices then as a XAML app developer. I've already made it clear that we've got 2 XAML stacks on Windows Phone 8.1. We've got the existing Silverlight one, which people have been using up till now, and we got the new Windows Runtime XAML, which is the same one we got on big Windows, which has come down to the phone. So what are your choices? Well, just a little bit of a timeline first. We started off with Windows Phone 7. I did the jump start for that, by the way. Silverlight, which is Windows Phone Silverlight. Now, this is nothing to do with the web browser plugin Silverlight. This is it has always been in Windows Phone about building native apps using the Silverlight API set and the Silverlight flavor of XAML. But these have always been about native apps. And we added loads of new stuff in Windows Phone 7.5. And then Windows Phone 8, it's all still Silverlight right the way through. And then this is where the new one, you can still use Silverlight with Windows Phone 8.1. Absolutely, totally a 100%. We love it. It's great. But this is with a converged one. If you want to start building an app and really getting the full benefit of sharing your bits of your XAML between the two, then this is the flavor of XAML that you probably want to be adopting in the future. Yep. But I want to stress that loads of the Windows Runtime APIs and most of what we're talking about, apart from these next sessions 2 through 8, which is just about building Windows Runtime XAML, the UI layer, but all the other stuff, the APIs, all the sharing, all the other stuff I ran through there is available to both platforms.
Right. So if we've got an existing application, you want to right-click on it and update it to Windows Phone 8.1 Silverlight, you get all those features that we'll be talking about. Yeah,
in fact, I might even show that in just a second. So here's your choices. If you're a XAML app developer, what can you do? Well, you can carry on using your existing flavor of Silverlight. You don't even have to build a Silverlight 8.1 app, because then your apps will continue to run across all the phones that are out there. And of course, there's not many at the moment, Phone 8.1 devices, apart from all the eager devs who have upgraded their phones. In terms of consumers, there's not many devices out there, and obviously that will ramp up over the coming months. If you want to build a Silverlight 8.1 app, you can. And then those apps then, if you're building Silverlight 8.1, will only run on 8.1 phones. Or you can move over to the Windows XAML platform, where you're getting all the full advantages of the full convergence, same XAML, same framework around the XAML that runs on both. There are a few features that you can only do on Silverlight. There's a few listed them there. I'll just leave you to read those. It's a very small set, and we are going to be working on bringing those into the converged set in future updates. But these are the ones that are Silverlight only. So that if you need those, that forces you down the Silverlight path. We can very easily upgrade Silverlight 8.0 apps to Silverlight 8.1, and that gives you access to all of the new APIs. These are the Windows Runtime APIs, email with attachments, the new WNS notifications, credential locker, the app data roaming, all that kind of stuff I was talking about. That all becomes available to you in a Silverlight 8.1 app. I'll do a very quick demo just to show you, and all I'm going to do is create a file, new project. And if we go down to Windows Phone here, the top ones, the brackets Windows Phone, these are Windows Runtime flavors, Windows Runtime XAML apps. But then you get down here, and now we get the Windows Phone Silverlight. So we can create a Windows Phone Silverlight app. And this is a Windows Phone. It asks you which version, 8.0 or 8.1. I'm going to start with 8.0. And this is now a Silverlight app that we know and love, and exactly the same as you would have created before. And all I'm going to do is just show you, I'm going to view something called the object browser, which is, you can look at all of the objects, all the namespaces that are declared in your app. All the system dot and this kind of thing, these are all .NET APIs. This is your traditional Silverlight stack, if you like. This one at the bottom, Windows, this is the Windows Runtime. There's a fair amount of stuff there. Actually, like I said, there was a small amount of convergence, if you remember, that small convergence. So that's the Windows Phone 8.1. Now, let's upgrade this to retarget it to Windows Phone 8.1. Bit of a warning, says you can't undo this, I want to back it up and this sort of thing. Okay, now this is a Silverlight 8.1. If we go to the object browser again and do the same thing, and just expand our windows, Now you've got the full shooting match, everything, Windows.media, Windows.networking, Windows.phone, all sorts of stuff, storage pickers and all this, everything is all in there. This is the Windows runtime, so you still get the converged Windows runtime if you like, but not the Windows runtime XAML, of course, because that wouldn't make sense because you've got Silverlight XAML. So there, that was a very brief session, demo of that. So in summary, the key deliverables for Windows Phone 8.1 is, first of all, that all your existing Windows Phone 8 apps will run flawlessly. So back compat is non-negotiable for us. Everything you got up to now will keep on running on a Phone 8.1 device. So if you move to we've got this Windows Runtime XAML platform and the WinJS platform that brings convergence with Windows 8.1. And actually, if you want the true convergence, you're going to want to use this one. They are actually all better perform. They've got more features and they run faster and use less memory. It is better than the Silverlight platform. And using that, you can build, share loads of code and bits of XAML. And although we do stress it's best to tailor the user experience for each platform. We've also converging across the tools, store, and commerce. But if you still want to stay with Silverlight, totally love you for that. It's awesome. You can still carry on doing that, and you can also get access with Silverlight 8.1 to all of these new Silverlight Win RT APIs that are not to do with the XAML side of things. So, in summary, now is the time to build for Windows and Windows Phone. It's never been such an exciting time to be a mobile app developer. There we go. That's the first session all wrapped. We're going to take a bit of a break now, and then we'll come back on the top of the hour, and we're going to start looking at building Windows Runtime XAML apps for Windows Phone 8.1.